Yes, it is. Yes, and we're back with another Jazz Matters podcast. And today we have a new musician, basically, that has migrated from Los Angeles, California, uh, Miss Louahn Lowe, as well as we have our co-host, Mr. Vaughn Coulter with Jazz Beats Radio. I am Edwin Williams with Jazz Matters. And before we get started, I'd like for you to go to our website or our webpage, which is yesjazzmatters.org. That's yesjazzmatters.org. And we have an upcoming event, which Louahn will definitely be on. It's our 7th concert at the venue, the Wren's Nest, at the 7th annual concert for Jazz Matters. And we expect a great crowd. We expect to have a lot of fun, and like we always do. And just go to the website, and you'll see other things. Also, you'll see the Jazz Matters store where you can buy great T-shirts, mugs, whatever we got. I'm trying to think of some other things to put up there, some washers and dryers or something, you can buy off of there. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and start the interview here. So, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Louahn Lowe. And Louahn, my first question is for you to kind of let the people know who you are, where you're from, and how did you make your way down here to Atlanta?
How did I make my way to Atlanta?
Well, let's say that again. What inspired you to come to Atlanta?
Okay, so I'm from LA, from Los Angeles, and I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. I don't know if you want me to go back that far, but
go back.
All right, so I played jazz in high school, and I played by ear, and then we came across a tune. I was in jazz band, and we came across a tune that I hadn't heard yet. So I was waiting for the tune to happen so I could hear it, so I could play it. And my teacher said, "You don't read music, do you?"
Oh my goodness.
So he sent me to a jazz teacher, and I was 12 at the time. I was going to junior high school at this time. So he sent me to a jazz teacher who sent me to a classical teacher, and then I had 2 lessons a week, jazz and classical, throughout high school. So then I went to college, and I was told that you can't play jazz and classical at the same time, which is a complete lie. But my classical teacher refused to let me play in the jazz bands there, so I had to take a break. And then I moved to Los Angeles after I graduated. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I heard the great pianist John Mayer, not the guitar player, but the jazz pianist, right, who played with Coltrane back in the 60s. I heard him play, and I went, "Oh, I miss jazz." So I called him, started some lessons with him. He immediately sent me to Leimert Park in Los Angeles, which is where the jazz was happening, at places like Sunny Spot. There were all of these clubs where you could go and just listen. And then there was a place where you could jam. And I became part of the house band there way before I was ready to do that. And my people were so patient with me. And, I played with all kinds of people, and I got lots of notes and lots of suggestions. And at first, people would shake their head and say no when I played, especially Bryant Jr. I'd be like, "No," when I played a solo. And then eventually one day he stood up and shouted, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then people started calling me to tour.
Oh, cool.
So then I started touring, and I started with Roy Gaines. That was my first big person that I played with. I played with Roy Gaines at the Monterey Blues Festival. Cool. And I thought he was punking me when he called me. He was like, "This is Roy Gaines." And I was like, "It is not." But it was. And then that led to me playing with lots of different people. So my love for jazz obviously has been all the way through my life. My mom played jazz when I was growing up, so that became my focus. And then 3 years ago, my husband and I decided to simplify our lives, supposedly, because Los Angeles was just a little bit too busy, too trafficky for us. And so we came to visit Atlanta because a friend of ours suggested that they have the things that I love here, mainly jazz and other stuff. And so we visited and we went, oh yeah, this is where we really are called to be, just in terms of how it felt here. And so we moved here. Is that too long?
Yeah. Now when you moved here, I got some information about you from another mutual friend of ours, Mr. Don Moores.
Yes, Don.
See, because at first I thought you and Don played together
Oh,
from his first phone call, you know. And then I found out that he actually a friend of his referred you to try to contact me.
Charlie Owens. Now let's talk about Charlie.
All
Oh
right.
man. Charlie is just, he's like an uncle to me. He was at my wedding. He and I started playing together when he called me I was doing the Ray Charles Live project. I was music directing that in Los Angeles, and he was in the band, and we missed each other by a few days, and he heard that I could play. So he called me for this tour that was to schools, teaching kids about jazz. And he called me and over the phone said, can you play me something? And I played him something over the phone and he said, you got the job. And that was about 15 years ago. And then from me playing that, he and I played together with James Leary and with just all kinds of other great musicians, Kenny Elliott, who later became part of my trio. He's just the best human being on the planet. And so when I moved here, I didn't, moved here right before COVID, so nothing was happening. And I was thinking, oh, it's going to take me a while to get to know musicians. Charlie called Don and told Don about me. And so my friend Louahn just moved there. Don called me for a gig, and that was it. Don called me for a gig. We did the gig, you and me, Edwin.
Oh.
Edwin was on that gig playing beautifully. And so I met Edwin and I learned about Jazz Matters. And I just feel so blessed and lucky that I met you and learned about Jazz Matters right away, because it could have taken years for me to get to know the musicians here. And because I had that first job, then everybody started calling me. And as you know, you and I started playing together a lot, and then a lot of other people started calling me. So that was really great.
Yeah, that's great, man. Because what we of course, Jazz Matters always will always try to give you a platform, and as long as you're here, we'll always look out for you, that kind of thing, and because that's pretty much what we do for most of the resident talent here. And Vaughn, I know you want to chime in because you might end up going back and reminiscing on some of those jazz clubs she was talking about.
World Stage, anyone?
Right.
World Stage, that was where everybody, and just those chances to go to the jams there and get to know musicians. I met Kamasi Washington there, and Kamasi and I basically came up in the ranks together in jazz, and he played in my band, I played in his band. Wow. And we would go to jams together, and he would call, Kamasi's great, he would call me in the middle of the night, be like, Louahn, there's a great jam you're missing. You got to come down. And be like 2:00 in the morning. And I'd be like, Kamasi, it's 2:00 in the morning. Like he was all jazz all the time, So we did Lakma. He's done Lakma. I played with Nedra Wheeler because of him. And I did
Oh
Lakma.
my God.
Yeah, the Lakma Jazz Festival. I did Mocha.
Time out.
Yeah.
You played with Nedra Wheeler?
All the time.
Oh my God. Nedra Wheeler went to high school with me.
What?
I told you this was going to be a reunion. I told you. I knew it.
Nedra can play the bass. I played with her in so many.
Let me tell you what happened between me and Nedra now.
Uh-oh.
I was just starting out playing the bass at the time.
Okay.
I was about to join the orchestra, and I was kind of new to the instrument. And at the time, one of the bass solos that I loved to listen to, the opening sequence of the Barney Miller theme back in the day, this cold opening, and it was just like the truth. And so I was practicing on it, and Nedra walked up to me and she said, "Oh, I know that. That's the Barney Miller." And I said, "Yeah, I'm fixing to, learn this thing." And she said, all of a sudden, she said, "Boom, boom, 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 boom." And at that point, I dropped the bass down on the floor and I left.
Yeah, Nedra can play the bass. Like I got to play with her with Karen Briggs in an all-female.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But then I also got to play with her with Charlie because Charlie would call her a lot to play. I got to play with her and she played in my band. I played in her band. She had this motley crew of bands, you know, and yeah, Nedra, oh my gosh, she lays down a pocket. Nedra is the queen of pocket. And you can't go wrong.
If we can get her to visit here.
I can call her. I'm sure she would.
Oh, that might happen.
She would love it. She would love it. And Edwin, y'all could really cut it up here between the two of you.
Oh yeah. She would love it here. She would love it. She would love the blues-oriented jazz that a lot of people play here. And she can play anything. You know, she's one of those people, she can play anything. She used to love to play things in mixed meters, like, and all of her tunes would be like in 7/8, 5/4, and you know, it's like, okay, what next, Nedra?
That's that typical bass player thing. You know, they always want to choke the drummer.
Yeah. Well, my favorite Nedra story is we were playing the Mocha Jazz Festival, and they had erected this like awning for us that was made out of plastic in case it rained. And so, you know, she had this really hard contract. And so we started playing, and of course it started raining, and the rain started coming in from the side. And I saw Nedra go over to the person who was in charge, and her finger started wagging, and I knew she was telling him something. And after we played that first tune, that was it. We still got paid the same, and we were out. We were done. We played one tune and done.
Oh, okay.
She takes care of her band, you know.
Now I want to skip up ahead a little bit, and I want you to talk a little bit about the projects you have coming up.
Oh yeah, I am so excited right now. When I was playing in LA, I basically uplifted everybody else's music. I was in everybody else's bands all the time, and I was, you know, working on their music for them. But I was writing, and I would play with my trio occasionally, but I was so busy as a side musician, I didn't get a chance to do much of my own music. And so I finally have the time to get my original music out there. So I'm so excited on this Jazz Matters gig. It's the first time in Atlanta I'm playing my originals on the 19th at the Wren's Nest with the Jazz Matters gig. And I'm playing with Edwin on bass and Charles Marvray on drums. And I'm going to be showing Atlanta my original jazz. Yes.
Sure.
And these tunes. And then I'm also
love that. That's amazing.
I'm also going into the studio with a man named David Fink, who's won 7 gold records and many platinums. He's a producer and a bass player. And I'm going to the studio with him, doing some demos of it. And we are discussing a record deal. So for this original music. So I'm really excited about that coming up.
Right. So the direction for your original, what would you classify it? I mean, you know, is it contemporary smooth?
It's contemporary jazz for sure. It's contemporary jazz. I also have a classical piano background. So I have a degree in classical piano, and I also have a master's degree in acting. So I'm also an actor, and I've done film, stage, TV. But as the direction of the music that I write, I have a little bit of, there's like a little glimmering of classical in it sometimes, and especially in the ballads. Most of the time it's contemporary jazz, you know? And I just love music that goes places and uplifts people. And I feel like my music, most people say after they hear it, they're uplifted. And even people who don't like jazz are like, I love your music. And I'm like, if that gets them to listen to jazz, then I'm all up in it.
Yeah. I found people that always say that they don't like jazz. They don't even know they're listening.
They don't know what it is.
They know they're listening to it.
They don't know they listen to it on a daily basis. I mean, it's in everything, you know.
Yeah, jazz is everywhere. And you know, it's I play from the heart. So for me, it's just heartfelt. Everything I've written literally came to me in my head. I'm not one of those musicians that sits down and goes, this chord goes with that chord. You know, I just hear a tune in my head and I go, oh, that's a great tune. And then I shape it as it comes out of my head, you know, so that's where I'm coming from. But
Right.
they're all very, I'm really, you might notice I'm very passionate about it.
Well, you know, there's a lot of musicians, and to tell you the truth, those are the type of musicians I prefer, simply because they don't have the ego. I would say it like that. They don't have the ego of guys who are pretty much rooted in linear stuff, where it's okay, it's this, and you got to play it exactly like it is on the chart, blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
I often wondered why they would do that with certain musicians. In other words, okay, regardless of whether you read music or not, you know, the way I feel is that when you go into a recording session, if you heard a musician that you say, I'd love to have that musician on my recording, but you write a tune and you never give him a chance to let the recording hear what you heard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how is it that you're gonna write for that musician when that musician was coming from the heart? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It doesn't
Oh,
kind of
listen,
strange.
the first time I heard people play my music, it was Kenny Elliott on drums, Kamasi on the soprano and the tenor, and who was on? Oh, Dominic Thoreau on bass. And that was the first crew I got together to play my originals. And I mean, I wept because I just gave them the room, I gave them the changes, and they played it like I heard it in my head. And
Right.
I just bawled my eyes out. I was so excited to hear. I was just so overwhelmed. And what I like to do is give a musician a lot of room to feel it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, I write it down so you know what the melody is and you know where your hits are. It's written down, but that's like a shape for us to play in.
Right.
And I really hate it when people try to make you do stuff. Like I left a teacher who told me, you know, I was rearranging, I forget what tune it was, but I was rearranging a ballad. I think it was My One and Only Love. I was rearranging it and I was seeing it in a very modern way. And he said, you can't do that. He literally said, it doesn't sound like the tune. And I was like, well, the melody's there, man. What you talking about? It's still the tune. And I was like, isn't that the point of jazz? Aren't we reinterpreting the tune? Isn't that the point? Like we're making it our own.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, so I had to leave that teacher because he wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do, what I was hearing. And I was like, dude, I'm hearing all this cool stuff, so I got to do it.
Yeah, a lot of people get threatened by that, or they look at it as if you coming in rearranging their creations when you really not. You're really enhancing it, because once they put it out there, that doesn't mean everybody will like their creation.
Right.
But there should be an element in there that can relate to people who feel music versus those who interpret the linear part of it. You see what I'm saying? Like a classic
voice.
Piece.
Yeah,
You know,
like through your voice. Like your voice is there.
your voice stand out. Yeah. But it's easy to write like that if you get a chance, you know, to do that kind of stuff. And I always saw that it seemed to come out better. Because I remember George Benson going to Quincy Jones when they were doing the record, and George had to do some things on there. Of course, George is not a linear person. He doesn't read music per se. You know what I'm saying? But all you do is, I want this. And you tell him what you want. And it's almost like you said, it's like he's in your head and he puts it out there just like it's in your head.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the whole point, is to invite people to a space to create. That's how I feel about my band.
Right.
I'm inviting people to a space to create, and then what they bring to it usually really inspires me, and then I write more stuff, you know. And of course, I was inspired by my husband. When I met my husband, I wrote a bunch of tunes for him. So some of those are going to be on the record. He's like, are my tunes going to be on the record? Yes, your tunes are going to be on the record. He's a jazz and soul historian, and he was a deep jazz and soul DJ. So I wrote a song called Record Man for him because he's a record man. He has over 30,000 jazz and soul records.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, wait.
He's busy.
That sounds like somebody I need to meet.
You need to check out the collection. What's great for me is one time I was doing a show in LA where I was music directing I was singing, playing, and acting in it. And they wanted some original jazz from the 20s because, frankly, they didn't want to pay the rights to the jazz that was written in the 20s. So I
Really,
asked
yeah.
my husband, so I asked my husband to bring me some inspiration from his collection. And he brought out all this jazz from the 20s for me to listen to. And that helped me write a bunch of tunes for the show.
Yeah,
You know,
get in that frame of mind. Yeah,
yeah, get into that 20s jazz, which is totally different, you know.
definitely. So now Vaughn likes kind of a historian also, and he has a pretty deep collection. Let's say it like that.
Then you have to meet my husband.
And you want to chime in on this? Go ahead, chime in, Vaughn.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of want to relate that to, I can hear the passion that you have for your music and how I believe it fits into your ability as an actress as well. I studied, I've been working in film as an actor, television and stage for 30 plus years myself.
Well, hello, my brother from another mother.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And so just in that, I feel, I said, oh, this woman's talking the right language, because interpretation means everything to an actor.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. You hear what the director is asking you to do, and you're like, okay, I can get there emotionally and be connected, but you have to interpret it through your beliefs,
right?
Your emotional level, you know, and that's how it becomes a three-dimensional character.
Right, right.
So, you know, it's all about, to me, it's all about the human condition. And the same thing exists in the world of jazz as a musician. It's a human condition as he perceives it to be, you know. That's where all of this honesty and authenticity comes from, you know. And so it even comes out, I don't care if the solos are already written. That musician makes that solo his own.
Right.
You know, so
right.
so that right there says a lot about how that relationship, connection to jazz or any music that I believe was resurrected through slavery, transport itself straight through to what we currently do today.
Oh yes, that's where it started. That's where it all
started.
began.
You know, and so the history and the culture is so rich and so full of all of these things. Today's industry doesn't even know that, doesn't, you know, they don't pick up on it. They don't know that vibe. They don't know
Right.
what that is all about, you
Right.
know. And so when you know, when I talk about the history of it, that is the integral part that makes it makes it part of us,
Right.
this culture, you know, the African American culture.
Right.
So, and it exists nowhere else on the planet, you know.
Right.
So, you know, that's the thing to me that, you know, I figure that as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, that element is always going to show, you know. And so I just want to say that, I mean, you know, I just wanted to bring that out. But as far as that record collection, I mean, I go back to, you know, I got my own radio show here in Atlanta. I'm on internet radio, and I'm having a ball.
Get together. We have to get together.
We have to get together.
My husband.
You know, Evan and I talk about, you know, I told him about when I found out about Dorothy Ashby. She was like the premier prominent harpist in the 60s.
Wow.
I mean, this was all of the jazz industry got inundated with harpists. And at the time, the only one I thought was like the most notable one was Alice Coltrane.
Yeah.
But when I thought about Dorothy Ashby, I was like, what? You know, and she was absolutely breathtaking. And I listen to music all the time, you know, 40, 50 years later, you know. And so with her and so many other musicians that have been, you know, pushed aside and nobody has any recognition of what happened to them, that's what I'm into, you know.
That's what my husband's into, yeah.
You know, so these things to me is, you know, that's the important thing about what I do as I don't call myself a disc jockey. I call myself an air personality, because I think that what my knowledge can bring to the table is very important. You know,
absolutely.
Get the listener, and get the listener to be, you know, connected with what that is. and the time period that it came out in. So this is just a start for me. Although I went to LA City College, you know,
Oh,
and I was a broadcasting major there. And so, and I, at the time, I didn't know what it was I was finding myself into, but yet still, I found this when I moved to Atlanta.
wow,
And
that's so amazing.
that was pure ultimate culture shock.
Yeah, it is culture shock. One of my friends said it's very buggy there, and they were not kidding.
Speaking of Louahn, how have you taken in so far the jazz scene here?
Well, the jazz scene here needs to be revived.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to take that on single-handedly, but I am pretty passionate.
Yeah, that might have been my issue. I tried to take it on single-handedly.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to take it on single-handedly.
Yes, Edwin, I know. But what I will say is, there are a lot of musicians, and we need more clubs for the musicians and more venues for the musicians to play in. There are so many wonderful jazz musicians I'm meeting here that are just from everyone from young musicians that are like playing the jams. I heard a young drummer the other day that I was like, okay, next time I have something, I'm going to call him, like 19 years old. And he's really absorbing the music and listening to all of his elders, and really just an amazing player. All the way from that to seasoned players who are out of work half the time because there's just not enough venues. And so what I would say is the scene is vibrant. Everybody's playing, but there's not enough places for them to play. You know, there's so much love of jazz here. There's so much love of the music, and so much, you know, so many musicians who do other things because they can't play jazz. You know, so it's about making the public aware that, hey, this can be a jazz town too. This can, you know, this can go back to the days when it was more of a jazz town, but also that doesn't mean there's not room for everything else, the R&B and the rap and everything that's happening. But we need to say hello to how many people are great jazz musicians here. I have not had a bad experience playing with someone here. And that is like, you know, truly amazing in terms of musicianship and fellowship and willingness to allow me to do my thing. You know, for the most part, everyone here is very supportive and very excited to play it. It's just they need a place to play.
Yeah, like me and Vaughn talk about that a lot also. And when you were talking about going back to the days when it was more vibrant for jazz, it was a place to go pretty much in every area of town. It's amazing. You can hear it all night long. You know, I've played jazz in venues up to 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So the whole deal is like, but the culture was being supported, you see.
Right.
And right now, it seems like the West is pretty much split a little unevenly, really. Whereas they seem to take the acoustic jazz or the straight ahead jazz, and they lump it into a category almost as if you were talking about, let's say, Negro spiritual versus today's gospel.
Wow.
That's a big divide, you know.
Yeah, that is a big divide.
And see, the whole point is in the spirituals, the Negro spirituals that were being played, there was every essence of profession in music. Choirs sang actual harmony parts, you know, whereas in today you hear more unison in choir. You don't hear that much harmony. Very
Right.
clear, you know what I'm saying? But it has taken over and dominated. You know, you only have those other types of harmony singing choirs in certain colleges. And like Morehouse, for instance, they have a choir. I assume most HBCUs have a choir similar.
Right, they do.
But when you're going to look at it in comparison with the jazz situation, the acoustic situation, you know, the straight ahead situation, the real deal, has been sidelined for
Right.
the contemporary R&B type jazz. They call it smooth jazz. There's nothing wrong with that because in a lot of the smooth jazz, there are jazz players that know as well the straight ahead situation.
Right. Of
In
course.
order to create that contemporary jazz or that smooth jazz, it came from the guys that were playing straight ahead.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But why is it that when you have an event and you're playing and you want, let's say, an actual acoustic jazz artist, why is it that your audience tends to think, okay, well, okay, we're going to see this audience, but see that it's so small. You know what I'm saying? Your audience, in comparison, you see, they don't.
Right.
They're not like back in the day when they could fill the entire arena. You know what I'm saying? With people who knew about jazz. Nowadays, these audience a lot of times feel like they don't understand it enough to go and support it. And that's pretty bad because that's the culture that you don't understand. That's
Right.
heritage you don't understand. But yet you say you like you like jazz.
Yeah.
Interesting to me.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here to teach. And we're not here to, try to force it on anyone. But all in all, you will have to eventually understand that jazz, from the I call them the forefathers of jazz, which is from Louis Armstrong on up to present day. They had a formula. They had a cultural heritage for it and respect for the music. Whereas now, in younger jazz artists, a lot of them are learning. So a lot of them are really taking it on, and they are doing a pretty good job at it. Problem is, like you said earlier, there are no venues that can support it.
Right. And we
That's
want
what it is.
and we need young people coming up to support to have that support to go play. Otherwise the music dies out,
Yeah.
Like one of my pet people will come out of schools where they learn jazz, and then they actually listened to people play it. They've never actually seen it live, but they've gone to school and learned like in the book, and
Right.
and I call it that scholastic jazz, where I just want to chew my arm off because they're missing like the soul of it, they're missing the whole oral tradition, the ear tradition of listening. And yeah, when I see them come out of school, I always send them to the jams, because that is where they're going to encounter some older jazz musicians who are going to school them, and that's really where that training comes up. And then if they're really like this drummer I met, whose name I can't remember, but he'll kill me, but oh well, if they're really respectful of the music and go and listen and really start to feel the music, then you're bringing up a whole new generation of jazz musicians, and they need a place to play.
Right.
Definitely.
They also need schools to put it back in the school systems, because it was taken out so many years ago we lost about almost like 30 years. It started around 30 years ago, when we lost generation after generation after generation of kids.
Oh,
in school,
Oh, the music needs to be in school. I mean, that's where I started, in junior high school, in a jazz band.
And that's why you're not locked up in jail.
That's a story for another time.
Yeah, that's why you're not locked up right now, because you had a different direction to go like, I can work with this, But nowadays, since most of the kids are not like that, I don't end up locked up.
I was part of the LA Jazz Society, and they did something similar to what you guys do here. They supported jazz. And so they had a lot of different opportunities for young people that were learning jazz from schools to go and play. And they offered like training, and they offered venues for them to play, and they offered awards ceremonies and competitions and like all kinds of stuff. So they kind of like what Jazz Matters does.
Yeah.
What I meant about school, obviously we need to have it in school. I was just talking about if someone just trains in school but then doesn't take it further and doesn't go out into the music of it. If they're going to be a musician, they need to go listen. They
Yeah.
need to go listen.
Well, see, the thing is, like, depending on where the school is, like for instance, say if you're in a smaller town, but it has a jazz program,
Right.
there's nowhere for that student to go.
That's the problem.
You know what I'm saying?
We need to create the places for the students to go. That's exactly right. Like the LA Jazz Society, is doing in Los Angeles. And bless them, they gave me a lot of work, and one of my favorite things ever, I've done a lot of touring, a lot of playing with different people, but one of my favorite things ever was doing that thing with Charlie and the jazz ambassadors, we called ourselves, at 8 o'clock in the morning, introducing kids to jazz and saying, everybody repeat after me, Miles Davis, and seeing little kids go, Miles Davis.
Wow.
And they would write to us and they would draw us. I had so many little girls come up to me and say, I didn't know girls could play jazz. Yeah. They would draw me and be so excited. And that some people even were inspired, because I started doing it 15 years ago. Some of them are now jazz musicians. I had a former student call me, and he was on the Playboy Jazz Festival. He called up and said, hey, it was all because you started, 15 years ago, you guys came to my school. And I didn't know what jazz was, and I got to hear jazz, and then I became a jazz musician,
Right. And that's right. They, right here, they had an organization called the Southern Arts Federation, which did exactly that. They went to all the middle schools and even, some schools that were not quite middle school, but I don't know what the term is. I don't think, I guess it was elementary, but middle school, elementary school, and high schools, and exposing. And that's the key word, exposing the young people to the music.
Yeah.
Once they're exposed to it, it's like anything else. They got to either gravitate to it or be curious about it, or they're not. But the thing is, they need the exposure. You have to put them in the environment where it's actually being done, and then give them a historical overview of what they're really listening at, and why it is so important to them.
Yes, I did that.
This, and that's one of the things I miss about what they were doing here.
We want them to do that here because I was part of that for 15 years, and the only reason I stopped was COVID, and we had moved here. And Charlie called me the other day and said, "Hey, your gig's still waiting for you. You ever want to come back? Your gig is still here."
You bounce back from LA to Atlanta.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit tiring to do that gig now, but that was every day. For the whole month of Black History Month, we would talk about jazz, and so many kids had never been exposed and didn't know that they liked it. They would be dancing to it. It was just amazing. It was just a healing for all of us to do that. And then, of course, we would be doing other jobs after that. We would all go our separate ways and do other jobs after that. But yeah, that's the thing. We inspiring the young people, but also giving them a place to play and themselves. Right.
Right. Now, who were some of the jazz musicians that you still listen to for inspiration, so to say?
This is a tough question. I don't do a lot of jazz because I play so much. My husband's like, "Do you want to listen to this?" And I'm like, I'm playing it. But I'll tell you what, you know what I mean? Like, I play so much of it, like I don't have time to like sit down. And when I'm off,
exactly,
I'm more likely to do things that are related to acting when I'm off, because it's like, that gives me my downtime. But I'll tell you who inspired me to play in the first place. First, John Mayer, listening to him live. Although I'm not the kind of musician he is, he's more of a bebop player. I'm not that, but his playing. But McCoy Tyner, my people. And I have been told many times, reviewers have said I sound like I'm influenced by him. I found him after I started playing jazz, because he's got that huge left hand, and I tend to attack the piano. And most men say that I sound like a man instead of like a woman. And it's like, I don't know if that's a compliment, because I attack the piano. Now, I play classical too, so I can switch into playing more gently. But when I play jazz, I really attack. And so, because I just feel it so much that I can't play calmly, so McCoy Tyner's my man, because he's got that big, like I have the big left hand, I attack it. McCoy Tyner for sure. I used to love listening to Oscar Peterson just for the finesse and for that combination of ways he plays orchestrally at the piano. You know, he plays like an orchestra. So he was very inspiring to me. And honestly, Miles Davis as a trumpet player, that music sort of, when he started like doing funk and soul and doing electronics, just all of his different periods of music I found really inspiring in terms of the groove. Like that's my big thing. If someone's in the pocket, I will listen all day if they're in the pocket.
Yeah, that's great. Vaughn, go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, that's an incredible array. When you said McCoy Tyner, I'm a religious. I have like a altar of music set up specifically for McCoy Tyner, and I always felt like when he was playing with Train, there was like this limited thing because Train had it a certain way,
right?
And McCoy was all there, give him exactly what
I got to do this
at that time. Yeah, but when he went off, and and he literally went off, McCoy and stuff like. One of his favorite albums, my favorite album by him is the one called Understanding, and it's breathtaking to hear him get out and like really do what McCoy can do. When you and pianists to me are just like amazing. I think one of the greatest of all time, but to me, in watching what Herbie Hancock has done over his entire career.
Oh yes, big fan, big fan.
And the same with I've kind of fell in. People was like wondering why I listened to a lot of Pat Metheny, and it wasn't because of Pat. It was because of the orchestration of what and an arrangement that Lyle Mays would give him.
Yes,
Mays to me, Lyle Mays was amazing to me, and so I like those songs that take me places. And you mentioned that the travel that they take you on. I mean, it's almost like you're riding in a bus or a large motorhome, and you're just seeing the country. You're seeing, it's just, and they take you back home. There's a story in every one of those compositions that those men have put together. And
absolutely.
And Patrice Rushen is also one of my favorites.
I was going to say Patrice. And I used to see.
She went to high school.
Oh.
Yeah. She went to Locke, and I don't know. She might have been a couple of grades behind Ndugu Chancellor. And at the same,
you're talking about my people now.
And Gerald Albright went to Locke High School too.
Wow, that's amazing. That's totally amazing.
That's when my days in the marching band and orchestra and band in high school and stuff like that, and all of these, we fell in love with Locke High School. We really did.
Oh wow!
Out of there, but I was going to ask you, when you were in Denver, what year did your family move to California? When did that?
I moved to California in '91. And went to graduate school at the American Conservatory Theater and got my master's in acting in 93, 94. Okay. Yeah. And so I wasn't playing music for the first few years in California. I was getting my degree in acting, and I was doing a lot of Shakespeare, traveling around doing Shakespeare. And then I booked a show called Strong Medicine, and I moved to Los Angeles for it. Then I got written out. And very soon, and then I, it continued me doing a lot of acting. And then, like I said, I did acting for several years, and I heard John Mayer play, and I was like, oh, I gotta play. And then, so I've been balancing like you have, I'm sure you've been balancing, I act sometimes and I play sometimes.
Yes.
I had a film with Gary Oldman that came out, Gary Oldman and Juliet Landau, that came out this past fall. And so, I'm still balancing that. Yeah. My favorite thing was, this is so crazy. My favorite thing was getting to do a commercial. And I know this sounds crazy, but the reason I was excited was I got to play jazz and act at the same time. And I was like, that is my two gifts coming together. It was so much fun, but
Oh, and
yeah, I feel no, I loved for Billy Childs in LA. I admire his playing. So step his shoes for a gig was like, what? I really admire his playing and I admire his arrangements. So I got to be firsthand in his chair, like, oh, I'm playing his arrangements, you know? That's another
Wow.
piano player that I really admire. I really admire his
There's a name I hadn't heard in a long time. Billy Childs. I forgot.
Billy
Billy
Childs.
Childs. Wow.
Oh,
I'm you taking me back home, dear. I got to say this. I mean, I'm loving it every minute of this
Oh, you're
conversation.
taking me back home. We're gonna have to have dinner. We're gonna have you over. You're gonna
That
have
would be that would be amazing. You know,
yeah, you're gonna have to see the records, and you and my husband will probably disappear for like 3 hours.
3 hours, like I do everybody that I know. I've ran into people that's got like I know a guy that's got over 1,500 CDs. I was over there visiting with a friend of mine I was, staying with, and I ended up being with him all the rest of the evening because, it's about the music.
It's about
Literally.
the music.
It's about the music.
For sure.
Really
And I will say, people like you who have that huge historian piece of it, where you know so much of the albums, that helps when I am trying to work on something. There's stuff I haven't heard that I need to hear, for different genres that I'm going into that,
Right.
inspires me. So I will go to my historian and say, hey, do you have anything from this period? Do you have anything from this? I forget what recently something was going on. Oh yeah, for my record deal, for my demos for the record deal, we're talking about reimagined standard, right? And I was like, I really want to try something Brazilian because I sing too, and I was like, I really want to try Brazilian. My husband came up with 113 Brazilian songs for me to listen to. And I was like, I don't have that much time, but I love you. He got so deep into his research. He was like, this person, that person, this person, your voice reminds me of this person.
that's a good thing. That's a real good
Oh,
thing. Have a reference like
look,
resource.
Brazilian music is amazing.
Oh, we froze. Oh, there you go.
I hold my right hand up to that.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Beam,
Right?
Joao
Right.
Gilberto, I'm thinking of, oh gosh, what's his name? Ivan Lins, these incredible musicians. And I just, every time I think about it, I have to say, I think it was at the time, I want to say before Stan Getz, I think it was Duke Pearson went down there and he flew, and that inspired him because he saw the Sugarloaf Mountains, and he saw the Christ statue on top of one of the mountains, and that's how he wrote Cristo Redentor.
Right.
Wow.
And that inspired him to write that.
What
And
a
so
great story.
it's oh my gosh, that is an amazing song,
Wow.
and Don does an incredible rendition of it as well. But I have to say, just that collaboration between African American music and Brazilian music kind of brought that out of the roots
Yeah.
of what it is. And so when Stan Getz finally made it down there, and Creed Taylor recorded, did the production of the album, with him paired with Joe Bim, the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff is beautiful. I could go down the rabbit hole on just that for a very long time. And I was like, I have multiple things.
You keep
You
freezing
heard
up.
this one, and he has like all these original things, he has like all these original things. And so, yeah, but we have to get together. We have to get together.
Absolutely. Look, I'm already following. I've just, posted my joining your Facebook page. So,
Louahn,
Oh, there we are. Zoom and the technology. I froze for a second.
Zoom and the technology, indeed.
But I'm very excited to have you join my Facebook page. Yes. Yay.
So, Louahn, can you tell everybody how to get in touch with you? I know you just mentioned Facebook, but any other platforms?
You can Facebook me. I have a website, louahnlowe.com. It's really simple. My name.com. It's LOUAHN.com. Website, you can see my me playing, you can see all my acting stuff I've done, and there's a contact me page where you can go and get my email address, and you can just email me and say, hey girl, what you doing?
Okay. Vaughn, tell them where you can get your information out there.
Well, most of my activity takes place on my Instagram page. It's just simply at Vaughn Coulter. I also have a Facebook page that is, every time I look at it, it looks like it changes without my knowing. You can find me at you can find me at Vaughn Coulter or Stephen Louahn Coulter. That is my full name. And I'm also at jazzbeatsradio.com. You can find me on the webpage there, and you can find out about all of the different types of music that I play. I come from a global perspective because jazz is a global experience. And like I always like to tell Edwin, jazz ain't nothing but soul.
Oh, yeah.
So now everyone, don't forget on the 19th, August 19th, we're going to have Louahn at our 7th annual Wren's Nest concert, jazz concert. So everyone that looking at this podcast, I want you to come on out, have fun with us, meet Louahn, and definitely have an experience.
I'm so excited about that. I can't wait.
And also, you can reach me at Edwin Williams. You can reach me at Edwin Williams Music on Facebook if you want, and or you can go to yesjazzmatters.org and you can learn a whole lot about me that I have never told you about. But anyway, don't take it, too wrong.
All right. Yes, jazz matters. Yes, jazz matters.
All right. So that's it for all of us, and it went by too fast because
It went by way too fast.
Yeah, But all in all, we'll definitely be back in touch. And Louahn, I'm looking forward to seeing you next Friday.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to seeing both of y'all Friday too.
So great to meet you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Take care, you guys.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.